Welcome to Okaloosa Today, local news and information. Connecting the communities of Fort Walter Beach, Destin, and Okaloosa County.
Welcome to Okaloosa Today on Cox. This is your monthly look at the city of Destin, Fort Walton Beach, and Okaloosa County. I'm Doug Rayner with the city of Destin, and you may have seen in the news lately that Destin is receiving a lot of grant money to build projects and move forward and progress the city. Today, Steve Schmidt, the city's development manager, is going to join us and talk about some of these projects and grants in general and just how well Destin is doing at this. So Steve, thanks for coming in today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, like I said, we've over the last 12 months or so, maybe even a little longer, we've really seen an uptick in grant money coming into the city, and a lot of hard work has gone into that to push us in the right direction and fill a void and take care of some projects that are really needed for our residents and businesses. So how do we come about these grants?
Well, we've been very fortunate, or unfortunate. A lot of this was, some of this grant money has been generated by the Deep Horizon oil spill. And so, obviously the community took a big hit financially, and given the reduction in ad valorem taxes and income to the city, we wouldn't be able to do any real seriously large projects that some of these grants have given us the opportunity to do. And so we do feel fortunate in that we have received some grant money. The first major grant was $10.2 million from the Natural Resource Damage Assessment. And that was $10.2 million to restore Noriega Point, which is a project that we've been working on for 6 or 7 years now. So we were just delighted to have that. No way we would have been able to do that project without a grant, and we were even considering doing it in small pieces in a phased fashion. With that grant, we're going to be able to basically do the entire project.
Where does that project stack up? I mean, that's one of the most visible things that we'll have done in Destin, maybe ever. What's the timeline on that? I know that might be a kind of a sticky question, but maybe where are we in the process? Like I said, like you said, that the money was released, I believe, so we're in the process of getting that project done.
Yeah, and you try not to do major projects in the harbor and East Pass area during the 100 days of summer, for obvious reasons. We hope to start in the fall. One of the last hurdles that we need to clear basically is a sand source. I mean, we've got as much as 100,000 cubic yards of sand that need to be placed back out onto the point or to restore the point, and that sand source is, it's extremely expensive to truck it in. The easiest thing for us to do is basically go do a beneficial placement of sand from a dredging of the East Pass Channel, which does need dredging. So it's a win-win. It helps the Corps get the channel cleared and gives us the sand that we need to restore Noriega Point. We're just in the final phases, hopefully, of securing the permit for us to do that dredging.
Yeah, permits are important when you do that kind of work. It sometimes takes quite a while to do that. I believe you had told me before that we're working with the Department of Environmental Protection, and they will manage the project. Is that correct?
That's correct. Actually, they're going to be they're going to hold the money. They're going to hire the contractor. They're going to do the project for us. We obviously have some input, and we've created the plans for them to work with, but they're basically taking the project on our behalf.
Good. And for any of our residents who are new or visitors in town watching this show, tell us why Noriega Point is so important to Destin.
Well, it's actually a historic spit of land. It's been protecting the harbor forever, and as it has eroded away, it's opened up more and more of the harbor. We just placed a very significant investment along the harbor waterfront a couple of years ago in building the boardwalk. And so now there's very little storm protection for that boardwalk, and also for the slips and other businesses along that portion of the harbor.
Yeah, just crucial to our fishing fleet, just the vitality of our harbor, and like you said, historic, and just taking that back to where it was supposed to be in the first place.
That's what we're trying to do.
And the grant money, again, this is focused on the grants, and $10.2 million is a lot of money. It would take a long time for us to save that kind of money to to put towards a project like this?
Yeah, we've been blessed in securing some of the grants we have. I mean, with a combination of stormwater grants and restoration grant for Noriega Point and some of the other grant money we're in the process of finalizing. It appears that in the next fiscal year we'll actually spend more money on stormwater and restoration projects than we collect in taxes, which is fair, exceeds our budget.
Spending grant money.
We'll be spending grant money instead of our tax money, which is just a tremendous boon to the city.
That is great. That is great. You mentioned stormwater, and this somewhat falls out of your realm of responsibility, but because you're so knowledgeable about our city business, we're going to have you maybe tell us a little bit about a stormwater grant that we got recently. It's a $3.6 million grant from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, and that will go to serve several areas in the city.
That's right. We actually had a stormwater review, or basically a plan that we did a decade ago. There were about 5 or 6 projects left on that plan that we never had time really, or the money to get around to. So this grant basically allows us to close out all those projects and do a lot of work that will substantially improve water quality. And while I can't, we've recently selected Preble Rish as an engineer to help us finalize the plans, and I'm not prepared to tell you the exact details of every project. But it's not just water quality improvements, but it'll also affect the quantity, so we won't have as much flooding. For instance, there's an Indian Bayou project that will reinstall some swales that have either filled in over time or been filled in, and raise the inlet boxes so that as the swale fills, and for smaller events, you get a first flush. It actually flushes through the soil and filters that way before it enters any of our water bodies. And then it's only after that first flush that it may fill up enough to pop off into the inlet boxes. So things like that really have a substantial effect on water quality, but also help to store and help with the water quantity issues that we have.
I think you know a little more detail than you let on with what you just said. Indian Bayou, you mentioned. I'll list the other ones. We have Sandalwood Drive, Spring Street, and Whippoorwill Avenue, Juanita Avenue, and Snapper Drive, Maltezos Street, and Calhoun Avenue. I think all of those either have some type of flooding issue or directly impact the water quality in our bayous and our bay.
That's right, and every one of those projects has a water quality element to it. So there will be some filtration, exfiltration, and that sort of thing, so that we can also not just help hopefully to reduce flooding in those neighborhoods, but also improve the quality of the water running off into the bayou.
Well, last April with the spring floods that we had, it was very evident that we have some issues with quantity, and no doubt that quality was an issue with that as well. So these will help us in a lot of ways, and it will be very visible once we have some substantial rains come back through. It's just a matter of time.
That's right.
You mentioned grant money and things of that nature for our harbor, Noriega Point. You talked about an investment that the city made several years ago with our boardwalk. We are in the process of working with the county and the Restore Act, or ORAC, Okaloosa Restore Act Council, to put some projects into their court and say, here's a couple of things that we'd like to maybe have funded. And let's talk about those, because one of them directly is related to the boardwalk.
Yeah, actually the ORAC committee basically was established to try to help the county determine an appropriate, set up an appropriate selection for projects. We actually submitted a couple projects to the ORAC committee, and we're very fortunate to have both of them selected as finalists. So that gave us an opportunity to go make a presentation for the projects. The two projects are Clement Taylor Park improvements, which, the Clement Taylor is a beautiful park, just absolutely stunning. But the improvements and stuff in the park are really old. They're 30 years old, and we need to make some improvements to the parking, replace the bathrooms, replace some walkways, make it accessible, handicap accessible, and so there's a number of things that we want to do with that, including adding a new pavilion, kayak launch, and paddleboard launch, that sort of thing. The other project is another thing that we've been working on for quite a while, and that's the Royal Melvin Heritage Park construction, and that's the property that the city purchased several years ago. in the center, basically in the center of the boardwalk. It will end up being the gateway to the boardwalk, and will be a very nice park that it'll be graded from the street down to the water, so that you can see the water from the street. You have a walk that's handicap accessible without having ramps or handrails and that sort of thing. We'll still have an area that can be used for for public events, and a courtyard area at the bottom with an overlook for like a bandstand, and it'll also have some educational elements and a place for the museum to have some special events and do educational things about the history of the city.
Great. This really just ties back into the importance of our harbor and our waterways, and how we need to expose those to our public and make everything more accessible. I think Clement Taylor, even you mentioned, has an accessibility with waterways and trying to get people down to the water, and through our kayak launch and things of that nature. And this, of course, does just that. The Royal Melvin Heritage Park would be that gateway from Highway 98, where everyone is, down to the waterfront.
Yep, that's right.
Let's talk about something that didn't really come into play as a grant, but as a partnership. We recently partnered with Trees Destin to really dress up an area of town that you're heavily involved in. That's Main Street. Let's talk about that partnership a little bit, and what we got out of that and what the city received.
Well, actually Trees Destin came to us looking for a project, and that was one that we had some plans for. We had already had a landscape plan for that to install some crepe myrtles and palm trees and that sort of thing. And this is apparently just a fine group that they just like trees, and they want to do some more tree planting around the city. So when they came to us and broached the idea of them paying for half the cost of the trees and the installation and handling all the work, and then it seemed like a win-win for us. So the council did basically agree to match funds with them, and we got those palm trees in on Destin, which I think definitely improves the streetscape. Hopefully in the future we'll be able to at least do that in phases down Airport Road and start to improve some of the look of some of the areas in the town center CRA, and that's our first focus. Yeah,
and I think that it just the look is beneficial, but I'm sure that some of your Main Street businesses are excited to see the new dressing of the street.
Yeah, actually the original plan was the idea of some of those Main Street business owners. So they're thrilled to see that come to fruition.
That's good. That's good. We're always excited to see progress, especially when it comes in the form of a partnership where we can share some of that cost. That turned out really nice. Yeah. We have a couple of other projects that are in flux. We have the Hudson Street project, which is not really a grant project, I don't think, even though there may be some matching funds in there that we're looking at. How does that stand?
Well, we actually did get that's another grant. We did get we got a $486,000 FDOT grant, basically through the Metropolitan Planning Organization. So that's not enough to do the entire project. We're obviously going to have to put some more in. We bid that recently, but didn't have any. The bids were too high, and we basically are going back out to rebid it. But that improves Hutchinson to add some bike lanes, multi-use pathways. So it'll definitely improve the multimodal access to and from the beaches.
And I think even some stormwater falls into that too, with right-of-way maintenance and updates that will just benefit the city again.
Oh, absolutely. I can't underscore enough the benefits of all the grant money we've managed to receive, and due to the efforts of some of the staff, like Lindy Chabot, Lance Johnson, Morgan Howard, David Campbell, Joe Bodie, Corey Anderson, and of course even our venerable city manager Greg Casella.
Yeah, he makes sure that we're always moving forward and looking for those things that'll benefit the city.
That's right.
Very good. And of course your contribution is hard to really put into words or in a quantity, because of your knowledge and the way you can help us understand what maybe benefits our certain areas of the city, but we appreciate that too.
Well, I'm just standing in for David Campbell. I was just trying to fill his shoes. He seems to keep volunteering to do jury duty. So.
Yeah, I know he really wanted to be here today, but David Campbell as our Public Services Director and City Engineer. So I think you've done a really good job laying this out there for our public and also helping us understand why grants are important. I mean, you started the show by telling us that instead of taxpayer dollars going to these great projects, we're looking at somewhat free money for our city.
It's hard to comprehend in a way that that we actually can spend more of other people's money to do our projects this upcoming year than we actually collect in a year.
That's good. That's always something good to talk about. We're about to start our budget process, looking at next year, FY16, with that budget year starting on October 1st. And as a matter of fact, we have some budget workshops, or a budget workshop coming up on August the 10th, and then public hearings or budget hearings on September the 8th and the 21st. Those dates are very important to our public. We actually hope that you come out to participate in those meetings. Again, the workshop on August the 10th, that's when council will be able to discuss the budget and make some decisions on how they would like staff to proceed. And then also public hearings on September the 8th and September the 21st, where there will be first and second readings on the budget, and it will be finalized at that point. So if you're interested in how the city spends your tax dollars, we encourage you to come out and to participate. If nothing else, just listen, and then also keep in mind what Steve told us about all the things the city's doing to supplement or take the place of those tax dollars that we would have to spend otherwise. Very, very interesting, very, very good stuff. Steve, really appreciate your commitment to the city, commitment to this show, as you always like to come out and help us out. We appreciate that. I want to make sure you stay tuned for the City of Fort Walton Beach next, and also if you're interested in more information on this show, contact the City of Destin 837-4242, or you can visit our site, cityofdestin.com. See you next time.